Going the distance with local sports. This is the X Sports Network.
Here at Fields & Brown Barbershop, legacy means a lot. We're trying to fill big shoes left by my two uncles and my grandfather, where every haircut came with conversation and every customer left a little taller than when they walked in. The barbershop is about pride. It's about knowing your barber knows your name and your story. Come see us at Fields & Brown Barbershop, where tradition never goes out of style. 3 generations, 1 legacy, your barbershop.
Arctic Air keeps your home or business comfortable. For more than 20 years, we provided outstanding residential and commercial services through southern Middle Tennessee. Whether you need assistance with your heat, air conditioning, preventive maintenance, or anything in between, trust our reliable team to get the job done. We'll take the time to figure out your specific needs and recommend what we believe is right and best for your situation.
We've been using Arctic Air for over 15 years now. Their service is great, they're here when we need them, and their prices are competitive. They take the worry out of the heat and air so I don't have to.
Arctic Air. When you need us, we'll be there.
Financial advisor Scott Beasley knows time spent with family is everything. As a founder of Beasley Wealth Management, his mission is to give clients the freedom to enjoy time with family without the burden of financial concerns. A local of Lawrenceburg, Scott deeply values building relationships with clients, ensuring they make informed decisions concerning asset management, tax planning, and retirement planning. Offering a free initial consultation, Beasley Wealth Management helps clients pursue their aspirations with confidence. A local law firm respected throughout the state. Generations of clients have turned to Boston, Holt, and Durham since 1948. We assist individuals and businesses with their legal needs, including real estate, property closings, personal injury, employment discrimination, and family law. Our clients get the personal attention and convenience of a hometown law firm with the resources and ability to handle any case. Come see us at Boston, Holt, and Durham.
Going the distance with local sports. This is the X Sports Network.
And I'd like to welcome everybody in here to a Monday edition of the Mark My Words College Sports Show here on the X Sports Network. I'm your host, Michael Marks, and we are here on a chilly Monday morning, and we have a lot to get into because we're about to get in that point in the season where we're going to have 2 sports going on at one time, so there is never going to be a lack of stuff to talk about. And, hey, for Week 10 of college football, my picks were much better. If you remember last week, I don't remember what the exact number was, but it was not a good one. Let me pull that up real quick, actually. I'm curious myself as to what my record was for last week. So last week, picks went 8-11. Was not a great week. This week, not as many games, but the record was much better. Went 12-4. We'll go back over those. I had Duke over Clemson. I had Miami over SMU. So if you look, out of the 4 power conferences, I got 1 game wrong for each conference. I would say that's pretty well. And, I'm not mad that SMU upset Miami. I think that made for a much more exciting Saturday. You had Virginia over Cal, NC State over Georgia Tech. In the Big 12, I had Iowa State over Arizona State. That was my one wrong. But I had Texas Tech over Kansas State and Utah over Cincinnati. You hop over to the Big 10, I had Ohio State over Penn State, Illinois over Rutgers, Indiana over Maryland, and Nebraska over USC. We'll break that one down in a little bit. That one I got wrong. And then over in the SEC, I had Texas over Vandy, Georgia over Florida, Mississippi State over Arkansas, Ole Miss over South Carolina, and Tennessee over Oklahoma. That's the one I got wrong. But listen, for as rough as last week went, the fact that I went above 500 this week, and that's much better than 500. Cannot complain about that one bit. So we'll hop into some of the games we want to break down. We'll start first over in the ACC with that aforementioned Duke over Clemson. Duke 46, Clemson 45. Is Dabo like seriously on the hot seat now, because I think we're at that point. Because I mean, look at it. Clemson's 3-5. This is, I mean, they've had some rough years over the past 7 or 8 years, but this is beyond bad. They're 1-4 at home this year, and that one win at home was against Troy. Now, do I think Clemson's gotten much better since, you know, those first 2 or 3 weeks of the season when it was really bad? Yeah, I do think they've gotten better. I think they looked really good against North Carolina. I think they looked really good versus Boston College. But the past 2 weeks, we've seen their defense get exposed. SMU put up 35. Duke puts up 46. I mean, giving up 40 points a game, both of those at home in conference play. Now, don't get me wrong. SMU and Duke are good ACC teams this year. They should not be beating Clemson at home. That you know, the whole Dabo before, you know, after that LSU game. Hey, if y'all are tired of winning games, I'll be on my way. He's won 3 games since then. You've lost twice as many. It's not looking good for Clemson. Cade Klubnik was back, and one of the few good things from that game was the Clemson offense. Klubnik 27 of 36, 385 yards, 2 touchdowns. Adam Randall finally got more than 15 carries in a game, 16 carries, 89 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Gideon Davidson got some snaps in at tailback, 12 carries for 51 yards. Antonio Williams was huge, and you know he is definitely going to have to step up big time, especially with the loss of Bryant Wesco for the year. But good to have Williams back, 10 catches, 142 yards, and a touchdown. Then you go over to the Duke side of things. Darian Mensah. You know, a lot of people, including myself, were very critical of paying a dude $4 million off of playing 1 year in the American Conference. Because Mensah, he's a sophomore. He's a young guy. He threw for 361 yards and 4 touchdowns in this game. He's got almost 2,600 passing yards this year, 21 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He's not turning the ball over. And he looked really, really good. And that was all that Duke needed. You got a decent game out of Nate Shepard, 13 carries, 60 yards, and a touchdown. But, man, they just got to stop when you needed it there at the end. They got that 2-point conversion, and that really was the difference. And it's crazy when you look at these two teams because Duke 46 points, Clemson 45 points. You know, Duke 21 first downs, Clemson 28. They were terrible on third down, both of these teams. Duke 3 of 14, Clemson 3 of 10, but both teams put up a ton of yards. Clemson put up 560 yards of offense, and really the difference in this one was that one turnover that you had, the fumble. So yeah, Duke is 1 game away from bowl eligibility at 5-3. Manny Diaz has done an outstanding job at Duke this year, and you look at those 3 losses, and they probably, I mean, really, other than that Illinois game, they've been close games. They've played some good teams really close. I'm really, really bet they would like to have that Tulane game back. One of Mensah's 2 interceptions on the season in that one. We will take our talents over to SMU and Miami. The big one in the midday for the ACC, and it was a great game. I really didn't think SMU would have the offense to get things done in this one because they did not look good last week versus Wake Forest. Miami had a slow start versus Stanford last week, but other than that, really quarters 2 through 4, they looked really good. But once again, Georgia Carson Beck, reared his ugly head, 26 of 34, 274, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Mark Fletcher had a decent game on the ground, wasn't able to get in the end zone. Malachi Tony was kind of quiet in this one. 9 catches, 70 yards. Did not let him beat you over the top. Kevin Jennings, on the other hand, 29 of 44, 365 yards and a touchdown through the air. TJ Harden, 8 carries, 27 yards and a touchdown. Listen, SMU's going to have to get the rushing attack figured out because right now, we'll get into them in a little bit. They're alive in the ACC, and the ACC might be the most varying conference because they probably have 7 teams right now they could play in that championship game coming up in December. Jordan Hudson was awesome in this one, over the top, 11 catches, 136 yards. And Ahmad Moses, defensive back for SMU, 15 tackles, 15. That's going to get it done any day of the week. Obviously, Miami did have the 2 interceptions. Carson Beck had that one in overtime that kind of sealed it. And it's crazy that Miami, 3 weeks ago, we looked at them as the second best team in the country. It's Ohio State, it's Miami, and then it's a gap, between the next 2 teams. And you lose 2 out of 3, things start getting a little weird down there. You got Mario Cristobal complaining about concerning signals. You got Red Lashley tweeting back at him saying, well, they didn't call it. And penalties didn't really play too huge of an impact into this game. I mean, sure, Miami had 12 penalties to SMU's 4. I think if it's 12 for 96, that's a lot of the 5-yard penalties. The holdings or the offsides and the delay of games and the false start, stuff like that. And that's what that crowd did. SMU had an outstanding crowd out in Dallas for that one. So a big win for SMU. Hopping on it out west, Virginia taking down Cal 31-21. Virginia, I can't figure them out because they shouldn't be this good, but they are. And I don't think that if you put them in the SEC, I get this is an outplayed narrative, but they're probably 5-3. I don't think that they're anything special, but I'll tell you, Chandler Morris is having himself a season in an interesting way. The senior's got 2,000 passing yards, 12 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, but he's also got 208 rushing yards, 4 rushing touchdowns, and 3 of those came in that big win against Florida State. So he's got a little bit of a mobility to him that makes him very dangerous. Jamari Taylor had a huge game, 105 yards, 2 touchdowns. And again, Cal they have turnover problems bad, and that's going to happen when you have a freshman quarterback. But 11 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. It's cool when you can throw for 2,200 yards, but when you're giving the ball back to the other team, it's hard for you to score, and that's really their problem. Is just the amount of turnovers. Cal on this game, 2 turnovers, didn't get one back. I would imagine that they're probably in the lower part of the country when it comes to turnover differential because they have a lot and they don't get a lot back. But a really good win for Virginia, the only undefeated team in the ACC in conference play, and they have a loss to a team in their conference. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? NC State taking down Georgia Tech 48-36. I don't know. I just feel like NC State always gets one every year, and looking at their schedule, this was probably going to be their best chance. And they got Miami in 2 weeks. They could do it again, but that one's on the road. This was their big home game of the year, and boy, did they have a good one to do it against. Listen, Haynes King threw for 408 yards in this game. Haynes King also rushed for 103 yards. He had 511 yards of offense and 4 touchdowns. And he wasn't the most impressive player on the field Saturday. I mean, C.J. Bailey, 75% completion percentage, so 24-32, 340 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jaden Scott was playing in place of the injured Hollywood Smothers, who, if he wasn't after the game, he probably was before the game. Hollywood Smothers, who was the nation's leading rusher, or at least in the top 3 or 4. But listen, Scott came in for him, 24 carries, 196 yards, and a touchdown was awesome. C.J. Bailey got one in on the ground as well. And, yeah, the perfect season for Georgia Tech is now over, but I still think they got a lot to play for, and this was one of those where if you got down early, which they did, it was going to be tough to come back, which it was. I mean, who would have thought, and listen, this is probably the best offensive game of the week, who would have thought that you had a game between NC State and Georgia Tech where they put up almost 1,200 yards of offense, over 1,150. Georgia Tech had 560. NC State had 580. Do the math, that's 1140. So, or somewhere around there. So it's incredible. 400 yards passing for one team, 340 for the next. It was up and down the entire night, and it was a great game. NC State gets the win, and they're 5-4. Like it's not like NC State had anything to fight for coming out of this one, but Georgia Tech had everything to lose, and NC State took it from them, which makes the ACC maybe the most intriguing conference coming down to the wire here late in the season. Looking at it, so we'll just go over one-loss teams because there's, 6 of them with 1-0 losses. So Virginia, 8-1, they're 5-0 in conference play. Their one loss was to NC State. Funny enough, we just mentioned them. But it wasn't a conference game because of the way the schedule worked out. They had to play each other in a non-conference game. So they're 5-0 in the ACC. Georgia Tech 5-1. They're 8-1 overall. They're still, they have the tiebreaker over some of these teams. Pitt, they're 7-2, 5-1 overall. They could easily 5-4. I mean, because you look at Pitt's, games down the stretch. Yeah, sure, they got Notre Dame, Miami, and Georgia Tech, 3 ranked games, but they're still alive. And listen, That quarterback they got is absolutely slinging it. He's only played, 5 games this year, almost 1,600 yards through the air. He's really good at Louisville. I'm going to lean against them. Yeah, they got the big win over Virginia Tech on Saturday night, but you lose Isaac Brown for probably the remainder of the season. I don't know. I would anticipate that you could maybe get him back for a playoff game if you make it, but I don't think you make it there without him. That's losing an 800-yard rusher and 5 touchdowns. And you got SMU. They still have 1 conference loss. Yeah, they have 3 overall, but they got Boston College, Louisville, beat up Louisville and Cal to end the year. If they went out and there's a crazy loss, they're in the ACC championship game again with a chance to go to the playoffs. This Duke team, they're 5-3. 4-1 in conference play. Their 2 losses were out of conference. They got UConn, Virginia, and North Carolina to close out the season. I think those are all winnable games. UConn not an ACC game. But you got Virginia at home, and then you got North Carolina, who is not very good, still not very good. Listen, we could have a crazy Duke-Pitt ACC championship game, and it would not be the wildest thing that we have this year in college football. We'll hop on over to the Big 12. West Virginia, the Mountaineers, got the helmet represented up here. Got a big win on Saturday, taking down number 22 ranked Houston, 45-35 on the road. Big win for the Mountaineers. They climbed to 3-6 on the season. Scotty Fox Jr. had a outstanding game, 13-22, 151 yards and a touchdown. But 10 carries, 65 yards, and 2 touchdowns on the ground. West Virginia looked like the tougher team. They ran the ball 50 times for 250 yards. You look at Houston, 31 carries, 82 yards. Connor Wigman, I get that this also factors in sacks, which there were 3 of them in this one. Wigman, 12 rushes, negative 27 yards. That hurts. Dean Connors had an all-right game, but other than that, they could not get the rushing game going. Wigman had probably his best passing performance of the year, 309 yards, 4 touchdowns, but 2 picks. And you get into a point where, it's a close game at halftime. It's tied, 21-all at halftime. You come out and get outscored in the third quarter. And then you get outscored in the fourth quarter at home. Houston jumps in the top 25 for 1 week, and they're right back out of it the next. We've seen a lot of teams do that this year. They finally get that number in front of their name, and then the lights get a little bit too bright. Arizona State, Iowa State ended up being a pretty good game in the morning slot. That one, the noon game on TNT. Sun Devils getting the big win, 24-19, keep their season somewhat afloat. We'll look at the Big 12 standings after this. Jeff Sims, is he a running back now? I said it, he cannot throw. And when he, you put him in these situations where he has to start and, can't throw the ball, it allows teams to sell out against the run. Well, Iowa State is one of the worst rush defenses in the country. I knew that before the game. I did not mention it on Thursday, and I probably should have. Because Jeff Sims, the quarterback, he ran the ball 5 more times than he threw it, so went 13-24. So he ran the ball 29 times in this game for 228 yards and 2 touchdowns. Raleek Brown is your running back. He only got 16 carries for 64 yards. So, your team's getting over 6 yards a carry. That's going to be tough to beat. Rocco Beck did not have a good game through the air. Another team that is just decimated with injuries. Iowa State. This could have been your Big 12 championship, but unfortunately, due to the way that the injuries have fallen out, this has turned into the injured bowl, the injured Big 12 championship game. And it's really strange to see Arizona State be so undisciplined and have so many penalties, so many turnovers, and still win the game. But yeah, big game from Jeff Sims, and really, really impressive. Because after one, I thought this was going to be an absolute slugfest, which it was. You had each team hit a field goal, and then teams trading touchdowns right before half. You have the missed field goal, the interception. It was an ugly game. But Arizona State had just enough, and it went back and forth throughout most of the early point in the game. I thought Iowa State really had it in control, but somewhere around the middle portion of that game, and it was really when Arizona State took the lead or extended their lead to 24-16 that one kind of just went out of hand. And because you could tell that Rocco Beck had 50% completion percentage in this one, and that's much credit to the Arizona State's defense, one of the best in the Big 12. you could tell they weren't going to make that comeback. Usually if you get a last drive and you got a guy, maybe you can drive down the field, but 50% completion percentage from a guy that you expected to be a 3,000-yard passer and still has a pretty good chance to do so. Not the best look there. Carson Henson had a really good game, though. 18 carries, 113 yards on the ground. I'll tell you, the Big 12 is one of those conferences where, man, it's starting to get strange down the stretch for them, too. But I'll tell you what team really handled business on Saturday. Talk about Texas Tech and Kansas State. Texas Tech, the Red Raiders taking that one 43-20, and you get Baron Morton back. That helps that team a ton, and you could tell. I mean, they went in to Manhattan, Kansas, and absolutely handled business. I mean, this one felt like one of those that was kind of over from the start. I mean, it was 7-0 Kansas State after one, and man, Texas Tech, they do this. It feels like every week they give you a little hope maybe. And they just wear you down, just up and down all night. Baron Morton had a pretty good game, 21-32, 249, 2 touchdowns. Jacoby Williams getting back in the rushing category, 17 carries, $135 and a touchdown. And then Cam Dickey behind him, 21 carries for 68 yards. That's the team rushing for about 4.5 yards a carry. But the one thing that had helped Kansas State during these trying times of not having your starting running back this season has been that Avery Johnson hasn't had a turnover problem. Well, the problem is he did on Saturday. 2 interceptions. I believe he lost a fumble as well. So three turnovers right there. It was not a 3-score game. Kansas State was going to have to be perfect and force some turnovers if they wanted to get out of this one. And they did force some turnovers. I mean, it was fumbles galore for Texas Tech, but it was 5 turnovers for Kansas State, 2 for Texas Tech. That's going to play a pretty big factor into this one. And then also Avery Johnson, it just couldn't get the downfield action going. Under 200 yards, under 50% completion percentage. Just not a good game for Kansas State. And, this was a team that was a Big 12 hopeful coming into the year and now are just really looking for what their next step could be. Another team that handled business on Saturday night in the Big 12, Utah. Boy, have they did that win really shake some things up in the Big 12 standings. Utah over Cincinnati 45-14. This is the first time we've seen this Cincinnati team since week 1. Because, again, I talked about how big of an impact it was that Sorsby was not a turnover problem. 20 touchdowns, 1 interception coming into the game. Did not have a fumble. Well, had 2 turnovers on Saturday. Do I think that impacted anything? No. I do think that not having your leading rusher, Evan Pryor, played a pretty big factor in this one. Because Cincinnati still ran the ball for 7 yards a carry, but it just didn't. It just wasn't going to work. That was just one of those where the momentum was too much. Because Utah had 2 turnovers to Cincinnati's 3. They didn't kill them in the yardage thing. It wasn't like they were particularly much better on third down. Yeah, they were all right on the ground. They had more rushing yards, but they were 2 yards less an attempt. So, it was just one of those that was kind of, you could just tell that momentum was too much. And you get down 24-7 at half, it's tough to come back. It got back to 24-14, and then, with you having the ball, and then you go 3 and out, and then Utah touchdown. So you had a chance in the third quarter to try to make it a ball game, but just didn't have enough offense. And it's strange to say that, but this Utah defense has really stepped up this year. Let's just look at some of their past couple of games. Cincinnati 14 points, Colorado 7 points, BYU 24, but that was at BYU. Arizona State 10, West Virginia 14, Texas Tech 34, Wyoming 6, Cal Poly 9, UCLA 10. They're not giving up points, and they're putting up points too. I mean, that Utah game or that BYU game was the only game this year. Only game, pretty much if they score under 30 points, they've lost both of those games. You lose 24-21 to BYU, you lose 34-10 to Utah, but in games you're winning 45-14, 53-7, 42-10, 48-14, 31-6, 63-9, 43-10. So when you're beating teams, you're beating the crap out of them. Problem is, you've lost 2 games already. Probably going to have to win out and make it to the Big 12 championship game if you want a spot in that playoff. Let's look at the Big 12 standings because they are a mess as well. Because I'd even say if you got 2 conference losses that you still got a chance right now. So we'll look at those teams. Starting at the top, BYU. They're 8-0. They're 5-0 in conference play. They just know how to win ball games. got a semi-tough schedule down the stretch. You still got 2 ranked opponents left on your schedule, and then a game against TCU, who is a very, despite their record not being the best, they're still a sneaky team and a team that we'll be talking about. Number 9, Texas Tech. They are 5-1 in conference, 8-1 overall. Looking at their schedule for the remainder of the season, you got BYU, you got UCF, you got West Virginia. If you win this game, you're fine. If you lose this game, though, your season probably is done. Because you look right now, Arizona State has the same conference record as you. If they win this Saturday against West Virginia, which I don't know. I mean, West Virginia just scored 35 on Houston, so or 45 on Houston. So anything is possible. And you're looking at Arizona State possibly making the playoff. Well, then Utah has the tiebreaker over them. I don't exactly know how tiebreakers in the Big 12 work because every conferences are a little bit different. Because right now Arizona State would have the tiebreaker over Texas Tech, but Texas Tech has the tiebreaker over Utah, but Utah would have the tiebreaker over Arizona State. So Big 12's a mess. We'll keep looking. 7-2 Cincinnati, 5-1 in conference play. I'd imagine they're done. Still got BYU left on the schedule. Still got to go to TCU. Have a game in 2 weeks against Arizona. Listen, they get a much-needed bye week. But take a look at them in that Arizona State game in 2 weeks, because if they come out a little slow or look sluggish in that one, it could be a very, very steady fall from grace for Cincinnati. And then you look at Houston, another team that is kind of facing their own certain fall from grace. I mean, their season, you look, they have a loss to Texas Tech, and you're like, okay, that was their only loss for a while. Then you lose to West Virginia, and you don't really know what to think. Now, you're 7-2 overall, 4-2 in conference. Again, I would imagine they're probably done for the year. A team that's not done, Utah, 7-2, 4-2. Their only 2 losses, I mentioned, BYU and Texas Tech, the 2 teams above them in the Big 12. Arizona State, 4-2, 6-3 overall. They do have that 1 loss out of conference. I would imagine they're done with 3 losses. TCU still only with 2 losses, and they've been sneaky hanging around. They got a game this weekend against Iowa State. They need to show out. Then they got to go to Provo in 2 weeks. That's a big one. They got to go to Houston. Got to go to Cincinnati, or host Cincinnati. Listen, they got 4 games. If they win out, they should probably be in the conference championship game. They probably will. Again, I don't know how all the Big 12 tiebreakers work out, but we could be looking at a TCU team making the playoff after being nearly left for dead, because I mean they have losses to teams like Kansas State, to teams like TCU has losses to Arizona State and Kansas State, who you don't really know how to feel about them, because they're good teams, but they've just had such injury riddled years that you don't really know how to judge them. But they, the thing with TCU is they don't have a ranked win yet. They'll have a chance to probably get 2, depending on how Cincinnati looks down the stretch, and they will need them big time. We'll hop over to the SEC. My page went and reloaded on me. There we go. Number 20 Texas defeats number 9 Vanderbilt 34-31. Oh, pardon. Well, we'll do the Big Ten last then. I accidentally skipped over the Big Ten, but we'll do them last. Number 20 Texas defeats number 9 Vanderbilt 34-32. A game that started as an offensive explosion and ended in a monsoon, it felt like. Rain was really coming down in Austin there, but what a really good game. 34-31, pardon. Listen, Diego Pavia had his best game as a Commodore quarterback. I'll just go ahead and say it. 365 yards and 3 touchdowns through the air, no interceptions. 14 carries, 43 yards and a touchdown. So 408 yards of offense, 4 touchdowns. Seems like it's good enough to get it done. You have the fumble. That's probably the difference in this one. But Vandy comes out in the fourth quarter, scorched earth. I mean, it's 34-10 going into the last quarter, and Vanderbilt's just getting demolished. Arch throws for 328 and 3 touchdowns, has around 75% completion percentage. He's figuring things out. Listen, guys, I don't know how to say this, but I think Texas might have figured things out. Getting about 4 yards a carry on the ground, obviously not good, but compared to where they have been, it's a little better. Quintravion Wisner, 18 carries, 75 yards and a touchdown. Still trying to work C.J. Baxter in there. He got 7 touches on the ground. What's confused me with Vanderbilt is they like to be a running the ball team. Only 10 carries to guys not named Diego Pavia. That's more than half of your carries going to your quarterback. Let some other guys run the ball. It feels like it would mix up the offense enough and because 9 times out of 10, when Vanderbilt's going to run the ball, that Diego Pavia will be the one keeping it. And I feel like that's made them a little easier to slow down as of late. I mean, Missouri definitely honed in on it. Big game for Ryan Wingo. 2 catches, 89 yards, and a touchdown. Had that 75-yarder on play number 1. This one was one of those that kind of just felt done from the end of the first. I mean, it was 17-0 after 1. I get Vandy scored pretty early in the second quarter, but it was one of those that felt over pretty early. And it wasn't even a turnover problem necessarily in this one. I mean, it was 1 turnover for Vanderbilt. It was that Diego Pavia fumble. You look at things, I mean, these teams are almost even. Both teams, 25 first downs for Vandy, 23 for Texas. Texas had 5 more total yards, so a little bit better on the ground. But neither team was great on the ground. 2.4 yards a carry for Vandy, 3.7 for Texas. Just not a great game for either team. Both teams had some penalties. It was just one of those where the team that had the big lead early was able to hold on to it late. And Texas now made a big jump in the AP poll, and they got a game in Georgia in 2 weeks. So Texas is still very alive in the playoff. Georgia getting a big win in Jacksonville over Florida. That one was a lot closer than it should have been, and I don't know why it was. It just did not feel like Florida's not a very good team. I will continue to say that until the end of the season when they hire a new coach and try to fix things. But I mean, Florida was up at the end of the first quarter. It was tied at halftime. It was tied at the end of the third quarter, and Florida had a chance to drive there at the end of the game, and DJ Lagway has a wide open receiver literally just standing down the field waiting for him, and he underthrows it. You lose Dallas Wilson for the rest of the year. That's one of your best receivers. That hurts. Your offense is definitely going to take a bit of a spill from that. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like DJ Lagway has. I mean, he's got some things to fix, but he's got like a lot to fix, and I don't know where he'll be quarterback next year. I have a feeling that tensions are getting a little high between him and Florida. Jaden Ball had a great game, 15 carries, 72 yards, and a touchdown. It's tough to run against Georgia, and you're still getting about 5 yards a carry. You're doing a pretty good job for yourself. Chauncey Bowens, 9 carries, 70 yards, a touchdown. Nate Frazier, 12 carries, 45 yards. And Gunnar Stockton, 13 carries, 11 yards. That sounds painful. Only 2 sacks, though, so that sounds like a lot of 1-yard runs. In this game, though, Florida's defense, Georgia's defense combined. 6 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. I mean, it wasn't even like the defenses played great in this one. It was just an ugly game. Florida only converted on 2 first downs. There were 2 third downs the entire night. Got outgained by almost 100 yards, and just did not look motivated to be there after that Georgia took the lead back in the fourth. If you have that catch, maybe you can drive down and score a touchdown and win it and make things a little interesting. But the Gators are starting to reel at 3-5. Georgia climbs to 7-1, 5-1 in the SEC. Mississippi State and Arkansas. Why are we talking about a game between these two teams? Because somebody was going to win a conference game for the first time this season. And it was 2 teams that, man, if they had any semblance of a defense, they would both be really, really good. Mississippi State finally gets a win in conference play. Feels good to say that. Bulldogs take that one 38-35. Not as much offense in this one as expected. I mean, it was 13-7 at halftime, and you're wondering what is going on. Both quarterbacks did not play good. Shapen, 242, 2 touchdowns and an interception. Kamario Taylor had to come in and play a little bit. Made a couple passes. Also had 6 carries, 55 yards, and a touchdown. Had a long one. Not very good running the ball for Mississippi State. Around 3 yards a carry. Arkansas was much better. Got nearly 6 yards a carry. I mean, you got 116 yards on 20 carries for Mike Washington. You had that big 41-yard rush for Raylan Sharp. Taylon Green had a pretty decent afternoon. Didn't throw the ball very well, though. Only 240 yards of total offense for Taylon Green. Definitely down from where it has been. Raylan Sharp had a great game in this one. Had 125 yards of offense and no touchdowns, though. And the weather was definitely a bit iffy out in Arkansas, so that had an impact on this one. But, man, it just felt like Mississippi State kind of had the reciprocal of what happened to them last weekend. They, had that big comeback. This weekend, they were the team making the comeback. Now, it wasn't anything too crazy. I mean, it was 28-14 at one point in the third quarter. but it never got worse than that. It was always kind of back and forth, and then it was one of those where Arkansas had a chance to score there at the end of the game, turned it over on downs on 4 plays, go 4 and out, lose 22 yards of offense. You had a chance and you blew it. But listen, props to Mississippi State for finally getting that one win, because now do have a rough schedule down the stretch: Georgia, Missouri, and Ole Miss. But I bet you they'll be really competitive in all 3 of those games. Georgia might mess them up pretty bad, but listen, that game's in Starkville this weekend. It's an early one, so it's probably the best chance for Georgia, that one being an early kickoff. But listen, they're going to show some fight, because now they know that they can win a game, because for a while, they went 4 straight weeks thinking that it was impossible to win. And now, let's look at Arkansas, because they still have an interim head coach, Bobby Petrino. I don't know if he's the guy. Obviously, when Pittman gets fired, he's the obvious choice to be made the interim. Then cleans house, fires a bunch of guys, which is not something you usually see from interim coaches. And then lose to Tennessee. It was a close one. Lose to A&M, a close one. Then you get beat by Auburn at home, get beat by Mississippi State at home. That was your 2 best wins, chance for a win. And now you're 2-7. You haven't won a game. You're 0-4 as an interim, and you have 3 games down the stretch that you probably will not be competitive in. You have a chance against LSU in 2 weeks, but they fired Petrino before the first bye week, so he had 2 weeks to get him ready for Tennessee. He's got 2 weeks to get him ready for LSU. So they have a chance in that one, but in the long term, I don't know if he's the guy for Arkansas. Kentucky getting a big win over Auburn, 10-3, and an ugly one down on the plains there in Auburn. 3 points. Let's go look at Kentucky's schedule real quick, if my iPad will work with me real quick. Because Kentucky's defense is not good. Looking at what they've done in conference play, just conference play, they gave up 30 to Ole Miss, which, looking back now, that's actually pretty good. 35 to South Carolina. How? 35 to Georgia. 16 to Texas. 56 to Tennessee. Auburn scores 3 points against that. They've got problems. So you throw Ashton Daniels out there. He's getting his first start. Was not great. Wasn't bad, but wasn't great at all. Under 50% completion percentage, just over 100 yards. And then you go back to Jackson Arnold. Don't get the reasoning behind that. You don't bench a quarterback to go back to the benched kid. If you're going to bench your backup, probably go to the third string, because your normal starter has shown that he can't do anything. You took Deuce Knight from Notre Dame in the recruiting cycle late in that one, so go with him. I will say, though, Auburn's defense played really well. Kurt Boley had 2 interceptions. Was not the same guy that we saw a week ago in Lexington, throwing for 400 yards against Tennessee. Seth McGowan had a decent game on the ground. Kendrick Law had that touchdown reception for Auburn, or for Kentucky. 6 catches, 49 yards for him. He's had a pretty quiet year for Auburn, or for Kentucky. But I will say that he had that first year at Alabama. Let me pull that up. Yeah, his first year at Alabama, didn't really. Well, he spent 3 years at Alabama and really didn't do much. Has more receiving yards and catches so far and touchdowns so far at Kentucky than he had in his 3 years prior at Alabama's having a good year. I'm really confused how Auburn has so much talent on offense and has a so-called offensive guru, was their head coach. We'll get to that in a second. And you muster up 3 points. Look, I get Jackson Arnold's not a great quarterback, and there's not a coach in the country that could probably fix that. Maybe Dan Lanning, I don't know. His offense was, he looked pretty good at Oklahoma that first year. But, you get Ashton Daniels, transfer from Stanford. He wasn't great at Stanford, so I don't know what you thought you were getting there. Jeremiah Cobb is one of the best running backs in the SEC. Nothing. you have Cam Coleman and Eric Singleton, who are probably talent-wise 2 of the top 10 receivers in the SEC, maybe even 2 of the top 7 or 8. And they combined for 7 catches for 46 yards. And Coleman was 5 for 32 or 34, Singleton 2 for 12. How? I just don't get it. Kentucky, on the other hand, doesn't have really anybody you would think of as being crazy talented. Cutter Boley, Seth McGowan, Dante Dowdle. It was good for Kentucky to get him back. Only 3 carries, but good to get him back. Kendrick Law, you remember that name, but Fred Farrier, Cameron Miller, Josh Gaddis, these aren't household names. I'm not saying Auburn's are, but they're at least getting some blue chip recruits in there, and they're not doing anything with them. So now we'll break into Hugh Freeze. He's gone. Good riddance. Was it the right call? Yeah, it was time. It was probably time 2-3 weeks ago. An interesting time in Auburn. Just thinking about it. He gets hired, and after the 2022 season, and he was hired for one thought. I mean, it may have not been the exact idea behind hiring him, but it felt like they hired him because he beat Nick Saban when he was at Ole Miss. At Auburn, that's what we want to do, is beat Nick Saban in Alabama. Well, he had one opportunity, didn't do it, and then you look, well, that was Nick Saban's only year, his last season. So now you have a coach that you brought in to beat Nick Saban, and Nick Saban's not around to be beat anymore. And he didn't do it the one chance he had. So, you got to get rid of him. Because, and you look at it, because Auburn has like 7, I think, of the top 10 recruits in the state of Alabama. Probably one after this one. And they've been doing that since Hugh Freeze has been there. Their recruiting has been there. I mean, look at Cam Coleman. Look at Eric Singleton. You got him out of the portal. Look at Jackson Arnold. You got him out of the portal. Now, I get he's not good, but that was a tough get out of the portal because, when portal season heats up, everybody completely forgets about what you did the last season, and they look, if you had a bad season, like Arnold did, and they go, look, he was a 5-star out of high school. Maybe we could fix this kid. You couldn't, and I think you needed to save your job. It's just not been a good year for Auburn. It just has not. And who do you bring in? I do know their athletic director spent some time as a baseball coach or spent some time coaching at Mississippi State during the time that Dan Mullen was also coaching at Mississippi State. They had a couple-year overlap. Could Dan Mullen be a name that you throw in there? He's a guy that's an SEC guy that's wanting another shot. That, I get it. He's a guy that has a history of not being the best recruiter out of high school. I think that this era of college football is made for him because you look, he gets fired after the 2021 season. When did NIL and transfer portal and all that stuff start heating up? Over the past 2 years. And he went in the portal and brought some dudes with him to UNLV. Anthony Calandria, we'll talk about him in a little bit. He's putting up some numbers. And he left Virginia to do that. Imagine what he could be doing in Virginia right now this season. But yeah, I mean, in 3 seasons, we'll say 2 3/4, 15-9 overall, 6-6 in conference play, and those weren't really anything good. Hey, you got 6 wins in your first year, 5 wins last year, and you're probably only going to get 4 this year. So I mean, it looks like regression. And props to John Cohen, the AD at Auburn, for making the move because, hey, it's only a $15.4 million buyout. I mean, they have 3 buyouts right now active with Gus Malzahn, Brian Harsin, and Hugh Freeze that are lower than the buyout that was for James Franklin and for Brian Kelly. So, at least Auburn's not out a bunch of money. And, with them having such a small buyout, and with Auburn having such good, I'll say at least advertising when it comes to, it's a good program. We'll put it that way because they've been good at football without good coaches. Gene Chizik won a national championship. That should tell you all I need to know. I think John Summerall is a name that could be coming up for this one. I don't know if that's exactly the move he wants to make because I honestly think John Summerall is probably going to wait for one of 2 jobs to open up. Florida, LSU, those could be two. I think he might wait for Kentucky to open up because he is a Kentucky guy. He's a Kentucky grad. I think you'd want to go back home and listen. If he can turn Tulane around, imagine what he could do. And kept Tulane at the level they were with Willie Fritz. Imagine what he could do in Lexington with some a Power 5 level of facilities and support and booster funds, stuff like that. I think you could do that with an SEC fan base. You could be looking. It's a positive future, but also the Kentucky job hasn't opened up yet. And Mark Stoops right now is the longest active head coach, longest tenured active head coach in the SEC. He's been around since 2013, folks, and everyone else is pretty much a new guy. And there's going to be a lot of new guys next year. Number 18, Oklahoma takes down number 14, Tennessee, 33-27. Yardage-wise, it was a little closer there at the end, but Tennessee's offense dominated this game in a yardage standpoint. They didn't put up any points, though, and they didn't help themselves. Obviously, Joey Aguilar has 4 turnovers, and he's a turnover-prone guy. And, at that point, Tennessee's playoff hopes are done. Oklahoma is very much still alive, and now at number 11 in the country. They've got some room where they can make some plays. 4 of 10 on third down, though, was Oklahoma. Tennessee nearly 50%. Tennessee outgained by 100 yards on the total, over 200 yards, outdid them by over 200 yards through the air. Got a kill on the ground, though. Tennessee, 35 rushes, 63 yards. Got 2 yards a carry. Not even. That's going to do it. This is, you have the 2 interceptions and the fumble from Joey Aguilar. That hurts. Oklahoma had 2, but didn't really end up costing them too much. Props to the OU defense, though, because, listen, Tennessee went up and down the field on them. Forced a couple 3-and-outs. Tennessee's, not 3-and-outs, but punts. And Tennessee had the lead and all the momentum, and then, funny enough, Max Gilbert misses a 37-yard field goal, and then Oklahoma's field goal kicker goes and hits a 50-yarder, hits a 55-yarder, hits another 55-yarder. I mean, he hit 3 50-plus yard field goals. And you look, there was a moment late in the game where it was 26 to, I believe it was 20, what was the score? 26-24, I believe was the score. And Tennessee had the ball with the score 26-24. I believe so. If not, but nonetheless, you look, and Max Gilbert had missed that field goal. If he makes it, it's 27-26, and Tennessee has the lead. Changes things for you. And that's what the 2025 for Tennessee is going to go down as the what-if year. What if Gilbert doesn't miss that field goal and you beat Georgia? What if Joey doesn't throw that pick six against Alabama? What if Jack Van Dorsleer makes that catch on 4th down and 1? Another thing, people, I feel like it's a dumb argument that, why are you throwing the ball on 4th and 1? Well, I did just say you're getting about 1.5 yards to 2 yards. Yeah. Well, you were getting 1 3/4 yards every time, as an average rush. Oklahoma also had 8 TFLs and 4 sacks. I like the idea of a short play action pass to a guy that has 2 catches on the year. You know why? Because you're not expecting him to get the ball. And Oklahoma was not expecting him to get the ball, and he was wide open, and it bounced off his face mask. It happens. I mean, it's simple as it was. Tennessee's defense is probably the best they played all year. Give up 26 points. I'm not counting the 7 points the offense gave up. But you kept Isaiah Sategna under wraps. You kept Deion Burks under wraps. You kept Xavier Robinson under wraps minus that 40-yard run. John Mateer, though, with his legs was really impressive to me. He really was. He had 16 carries for 80 yards and a touchdown, but he had 2 rushes for I think it was probably about 45 combined yards in big moments where he just looked faster than Tennessee's defense. And a grudge match like this, because it was always going to be a grudge match, it was going to be which team wanted to go to the playoff more. Got one team rushing for 6 yards a carry, one team rushing for 2. That's going to do it. Now, also, the idiots that are saying that Tennessee needs to fire Josh Heupel just need to shut up. That is the stupidest excuse, lame excuse. I mean, it's just dumb. You look overall at Josh Heupel's, what he's had to overcome and deal with at Tennessee. They were 3-7 in that COVID year. Yeah, I think they did win 3 games that year. Or 3-7 in that COVID year. And bring in, obviously you have all the stuff. You fire, with all the AD stuff, you fire Philip Fulmer. You bring in a new chancellor. You bring in a new athletic director. He goes and brings his guy with him from UCF. At 5 years at Tennessee, he took over a 3-7 team with scholarship limitations because of the junk that Jeremy Pruitt got him into. He went 43-18. That's his current record at Tennessee through 51 games. 43 wins, 18 losses, and he's not good enough. Go over to the guy at Texas, Steve Sarkisian, one of my favorite coaches in the country. He's been at Texas for 5 seasons now. He took over a 7-3 team after that COVID year with no scholarship limitations and NIL money out the wazoo because it's Texas. He's 45-19, and he's looked at one of the top 3 or 4 coaches in the country. I think Tennessee fans also forget, I'll just put a couple of games in your mind. In 2011, well, first, let's go back to 2008. You announced that you were going to fire your coach halfway through the season. You lose to Wyoming. 2009, your coach leaves you at the end of the year. You get blown out in a bowl game you probably shouldn't have been in. The next head coaching regime, Derek Dooley, in his second year, you lost to Kentucky on the road for the first time in, 27 years? 26 years? With a wide receiver at quarterback, mind you, Kentucky. Then the next coaching regime with Butch Jones, getting beat 51-17 2 years in a row to Missouri. That one went downhill fast, the whole Butch Jones one, and you could kind of tell going into 2017 it was not going to be a good year. You can just look at that entire season. You didn't win a conference game that year. We went 4-8. You get blown out by Vanderbilt at home. That tells you how bad it was under Butch Jones. Then you get Jeremy Pruitt in. First year was not good. You get blown out by Florida at home. Now, that ended up being a decent Florida team, but then you go down to Georgia, and you got your coach crying after the game because your team's trying hard. Cool. At least now we're competing with Georgia. We're competing with Alabama. We can compete. We should beat Florida. Listen, if you look at Oklahoma and Tennessee 10 years ago, 12 years ago, I would have been stoked if Tennessee was competing with Oklahoma at that point. So I think everybody needs to pump their brakes. Now, I will say that Tennessee is not going to win anything of significance until there are some changes being made, because I do think that Heupel does have a bit of a problem with the whole buddy system with his guys. I don't know if you need to make a change at OC because the offense has looked really good this year and it's gotten some new wrinkles in it. But you might need to take a look at an O-line coach, because usually about this point every year, when Tennessee starts playing the bigger and badder and faster teams, that offensive line gets exposed, and it's happened for years now. Maybe make a move there. I don't even know if you need to make a move at linebacker coach, but secondary has definitely been a bit of concern this year, because it's been very bend or break. We let Kentucky throw for almost 400 yards against us. That's a problem. Defensive coordinator needs to go, though. Tim Banks, it's not it. He looks like a good defensive coordinator against bad offenses, and then a good offense shows up. And Kentucky and OU was not a good offense. Even bad offenses, but more physical teams than us show up, and they dominate us. Because, when you rush 4 against, Mississippi State, you'll get to the quarterback some, because their right tackle and their left tackle are not going to be playing in the NFL someday. But you go play Alabama, both of their tackles will be playing on Sundays. And you don't get a sack in that game. You might have gotten, one? And it was a strip sack, so it wasn't even really a sack. Happens year after year. You got to make a change. You got to be a little more aggressive in play calls, because Tennessee's defense was great in that game, but it wasn't because they were making sacks and tackles for loss. It was just short yardage every time. I could sit there and rant on this all day. No, Tennessee does not need to fire Josh Heupel. Yes, they probably do need to make some changes. Will they? Probably not especially in this coaching search. But I will say, You do not want to get involved in this coaching search if you're Tennessee, because you're going to end up with another Derek Dooley, and you're going to end up putting yourself in another 15-year hole. Because you look at Tennessee under Josh Heupel, you take out that 7-6 first year, or 6-7, or whatever it was. You win the Orange Bowl, you go, what was that, 11-2 that year? It's pretty good. Next year, 9-4. You get a bowl win over Iowa. And that Iowa team made it to the Big Ten championship game that year. 2024, you make it to the college football playoff. And yeah, you go get smoked by the eventual national champion in their house, who also did the same thing to the number one team in the country the next week, or 10 days later, at the Rose Bowl. And right now you're 6-3 with some very big games left on your schedule. Because if you go all scorched earth and mad and firing everybody and pinching everybody, you're going to go 7-5. You will, because Florida and Vanderbilt will beat you. But now, listen, those games are still very winnable. And Florida's not very good, so that will probably be a middle-of-the-day game in 2 weeks, which I feel much better about going down into as opposed to a night game in the swamp. Things are fine at Tennessee. Oklahoma's really good. Their defense is really good. And that caused problems. They didn't allow Tennessee to run the ball, and that's the foundation of a Josh Heupel offense. But props to Joey for almost throwing for 400 yards on Oklahoma's pass defense, because that is getting a bit suspect. I'll hop on over to the American Conference for one game. Navy got beat. The perfect season is over, and they never got a number by their name. Shame on you, AP poll, for that. But North Texas, they're 8-1. They don't have a number by their name. I don't believe. They should. We'll get in the AP poll in a minute. But North Texas getting a big win. They're 8-1. They're looking good. And the way their team had gone was by their way their quarterback, Drew Mustamaker, throwing it 50 times a game, throwing for 600 yards. Didn't have to do that. Went 19-24, so about 80% completion percentage, 234 yards, no touchdowns. Caleb Hawkins was the hero in this one. If you're talking about running the ball against Navy, you know, if you were going to talk about rushing in this game, you thought it would be Blake Horvath or Brendan Chapman or Alex Eka. You know, it's Caleb Hawkins, the running back for North Texas, had 33 carries for 194 yards and 4 touchdowns. And he's also a freshman. He's really good too. 744 yards and 11 touchdowns on the ground this year, 6.1 yards a carry. This North Texas team has an offense that can put up points in a hurry. Didn't have to put up too many, but able to get up early against Navy and then just kind of hold the lead till then. Look out for North Texas. They have UAB, Rice, and Temple left on their schedule. And they'll be 11-1 playing in the American Conference Championship game. We'll take a look at that conference because that one's got shaken up thanks to UTSA and Tulane's outcome. Right now you have Navy, Memphis, and North Texas that have a chance, I'll say. I don't think if you got 2 losses, you're not going to make it. I don't think so. You know, props to Tulane and South Florida for trying to play tough schedules. Ended up biting you in the butt there at the end. You know, we'll see how bad it ends up biting Navy, but right now I think it's between Memphis and North Texas. One team scores a lot. One team's got a good defense. Honestly, Memphis has got a pretty good offense as well. Both teams 8-1. Both teams 4-1 in conference play. I will say Memphis has got a rough go of it for the rest of conference play. They got Tulane and Navy left, and they got to go to East Carolina for one of those games. North Texas does not have as rough of a go of it, but man, Navy. You got Notre Dame, South Florida, Memphis, and Army left. That's not going to be fun one bit. I think it was Tulane. Yeah, they got Memphis, FAU, Temple, and Charlotte left, so not terrible for them. South Florida still has UTSA, Navy, UAB, and Rice left. So, you know, looking at it right now, it's probably going to be Memphis or North Texas playing in that American Conference Championship game in December. That should be a good one, but there's still a couple teams out west that do have, really just one team out west that has any say in that one, especially after UNLV got that big loss to New Mexico, who, listen, Jason Eck got himself a team out there. They're 6-3, so they're not going to make the playoff, but I think they're going to be a pretty good team in a couple of years, unless he goes and takes a bigger job, which I think is probably still on the line. Out of the Mountain West, any other team that's got a playoff chance, I'd say a San Diego State got a big win over Wyoming this weekend, and they look good Jaden Denegal has been really good this year. 1,400 yards, 8 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. They've kept it on the ground a lot, though, with Lucky Sutton. He's got over 820 yards and 8 touchdowns. Their defense is also really, really good, too, only giving up 41 points in 4 games of conference play. I think they'll take that. Any other team that really has a chance at a playoff spot, maybe Kennesaw State, maybe Western Kentucky, but you're looking like it's probably Memphis, North Texas, and San Diego State are probably your only chances. You can look at the Sun Belt because I guess JMU's 7-1 still. Marshall, App State, Washington State, and Coastal left. They're 11-1. You can probably talk about it, but for right now, they're one of those teams kind of flying under the radar there. Also, New Mexico defeats UNLV 40-35. Again, I just had mentioned Jason Eck's team. Listen, those are 2 coaches in that game that I think will be head coaches at Power 5 schools, if not next year, in 2 or 3 years. You look, Anthony Calandria, the UNLV quarterback, put up some numbers. 36 of 46, 382, 3 touchdowns. Also ran for 41 yards. Didn't have much of a ground game going, though, and that was really the big difference. Jack Lane, he had 22 pass attempts and threw for 342 yards and 3 touchdowns. 17 of 22. There was a couple of guys that threw some passes in that game. 20 of 26 as a team, 401, 4 touchdowns. James Lobstein, 8 carries, 99 yards. DJ Kinney, 7 carries, 20 yards, got that touchdown in. But for New Mexico, it was 2 guys, Keegan Johnston and Damon Bankston. Johnson, 6 carries, 158 yards, and a touchdown. Bankston, 5 carries, 122 yards, 2 touchdowns. Big game from those 2 guys. We know UNLV's defense is going to be suspect, but they did get 4 sacks and 8 TFLs. But again, it was. This is one of those games where it's like the team that has the ball last is probably going to win the game. UNLV had a chance. It was kind of driving the ball. He had that fumble, ends the game. Sucky way to end a chance at a playoff spot for Dan Mullen's guys in the running Rebs, but I'll tell you, New Mexico's a really good team, and I think that the Mountain West Conference Championship game, despite it probably won't, because it probably won't feature UNLV or New Mexico, but those are 2 really, really good teams out west. And tough loss for Boise State. They went and played Fresno, and got absolutely smoked. Fresno State had not looked good on offense all season. And then Carson Conklin comes in. They don't really try to throw the ball. They didn't really run the ball very well. It was just a game that was ugly. Maddox Madsen didn't play very much. It was I don't want to say turnover-riddled game because it was really just 3 for Boise. Neither team was good on first down. Neither team was good on third down. A bunch of penalties. Neither team was good at moving the ball. But Fresno was just able to get in the end zone 3 times, and that was really all they needed. So that will do it for the game previews or the game recaps. We will be back on Friday to predict the week 7 or the week 11 games. Man, it's crazy. We're already on week 11. We'll take a look at the AP poll for this next week. We heading into week 11. Top 7 stays the same, but we'll break it down from 25 to 1. Iowa still on the outside looking in. James Madison still on the outside looking in. You got other teams: North Texas, San Diego State, South Florida somehow, SMU, Houston, Illinois, LSU, Arizona State. So still a bunch of teams getting votes. I think Iowa and North Texas should be ranked. That's my personal opinion. Cincinnati drops 8 spots from 17 to 25 following that loss to Utah. And I don't know where they go from here because they still have a lot of tough games left on their schedule. They'll drop out if they lose another game. But they do have a bye week, and they need it. Washington up to 24. Hey, they finally got that number by their name, so they can, enjoy it. And they have a game at Wisconsin this weekend, so that will probably remain. But knowing how some of these teams have been that just jump in, they come in, play a team they shouldn't get beat to, and then get beat. Tennessee drops 9 spots to 23. Memphis up 3 spots to 22. Michigan at 21 stays there. USC up 3 spots to 20. Missouri stays at 19. Miami all the way down to 18. Utah up 7 spots to number 17. Georgia Tech dropped all the way to 16. I hate this because you get a team in a conference that's undefeated and that probably that isn't typically your undefeated team. If it was Florida State, Clemson, or Miami that had the exact same, that put their logo by instead of Georgia Tech, have it say Miami or Louisville or Florida State or whoever. They're 8-0. They're probably number 4 in the country, number 3 in the country, maybe even number 2, and they lose one game on the road to an unranked team, they'll drop to 8 or 9. I don't like these teams that aren't typically getting crazy disrespect when they lose a game. Because that NC State team's really good. Their record is just very deceiving. Vanderbilt drops 6 spots to number 15. Louisville up 2 spots to number 14. Texas makes a big jump from 20 to 13. Virginia keeps climbing and climbing. They're up to number 12 now. Oklahoma goes from 18 to 11. They are not the highest ranked 2-loss team because that will be the team right in front of them, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. They're at number 10. And people are saying, well, Notre Dame beat Miami. Why is Notre Dame ranked higher than Miami? Well, Miami's lost 2 out of the last 3, and Notre Dame hasn't lost, and they've won 6 straight. Texas Tech up 4 spots back to number 9. They're definitely climbing back towards my playoff rankings. BYU up 2 spots to number 8. And then, like I said, the top 7 remains the same. Ole Miss, Oregon, Georgia, Alabama all have a record of 7-1, except Ole Miss is 8-1. And then number 3 at 8-0, Texas A&M. Number 2, 9-0, Indiana. And then number 1, Ohio State will remain. Looking at the top 10, it looks like everybody in the top 10 has a game this week. So that's great. We got Ohio State, Purdue, Indiana, Penn State, Texas A&M, Missouri, Alabama, LSU, Georgia, Mississippi State, Oregon, Iowa. That's going to be a good one. Ole Miss is facing the Citadel. Thanks for that one. BYU and Texas Tech head-to-head, and then Notre Dame against Navy. So we got some possible shaky games tying up this weekend. But hey, folks, it is November 3rd. Which is also the opening day for college basketball. And it's here. Not a crazy load of good games this week. You'll get some later in the week and in the end of the weekend. But as of now, a little bit shaky. But hey, we got some good ones. Today, Arizona, number 13, Arizona, number 3, Florida, the defending national championships are out in Vegas. That one at 6 p.m. on TNT and HBO Max. And then following that one up, Villanova at BYU, that one at 8:30 on TNT or HBO Max. And hey, ESPN, that's how you block out college basketball games. 2.5 hours. They don't finish in 2 hours. So, you putting 5 games in the 10-hour span does not work. And then tomorrow, since our next show will be on Wednesday, you got Texas and number 6 Duke. That one at 7:45 on ESPN. That's going to be a good one. I cannot wait for that one. Cameron Boozer is my early season favorite for Player of the Year. I'll give some love to the local teams around here, or the team that most people are fans of around here. You got Tennessee taking on Mercer at 6 p.m. That one on SEC Network Plus. So pretty much if you have a TV subscription, I get the YouTube TV ESPN dispute. But if you have the ESPN direct-to-consumer or you have a TV provider that's not YouTube TV, you should be able to sign in and watch that one. Tennessee's got a lot of exciting players. You got Jacoby Gillespie, a new guy, Nate Ament. Really a fan of Amari Abram. I hope he continues to wear the sweatband, long shorts, and all that stuff. Kind of an old '90s style. Auburn, number 20th in the country, they'll take on Bethune-Cookman. That one at 7 p.m. on the SEC Network Plus, along with Vanderbilt, who is taking on Lipscomb. That should actually be a pretty good game. Not sure how Lipscomb's supposed to be in the ASUN this year, but usually a pretty good team up there in Nashville. And then North Dakota at Alabama, that one at 7 o'clock, also on the SEC Network Plus. And if you want to watch, you got Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Oklahoma. The only televised games of SEC teams are Arizona, Florida, and then Southern and Arkansas. That one on the SEC Network. And we'll hop on over to the women's game, because we actually got a game going on right now. We'll see if we can get a score from that one. Duke and Baylor. That one is actually about to go final. 7 seconds left in that one. Number 16 Baylor has a 58-52 lead over number 7 Duke. Take a look real quick. 24 points for Scott for Baylor. For the Blue Devils, Fournier has 16 points, 10 rebounds. not a good shooting day for either one of these teams. Duke shooting 29% from the field, 21% from three, 62% from the line. And Baylor pretty much making up that difference, 32% from the field on less shots, 20% from the three-point line, but 15 to 20 from the line. And, taking 7 more free throw attempts than the other team is the difference in this game, as that one's about to go final. Says there's 1 second left, so I guess they'll be shooting some free throws on that one for a little bit. And then coming up, I believe right after that, we got Cal and Vanderbilt. That one will be at 1:30 today on ESPNU. That should be a pretty good one. Vandy, I mean, we know what their women's program has been and what it has become. 2 different teams. Yeah, really, really impressive. The Lady Vols first game, that one will be tomorrow as number 8 Tennessee faces number 9 NC State. That one at 3 p.m. on ESPN2. And then number 20 Louisville taking on the defending national championship UConn Huskies. That at 4:30 on ESPN. We'll take a look at some of the other more local teams in women's college basketball. Ole Miss already got a win over Norfolk State, 87-46. Stetson and Alabama playing at 4 p.m. today. That one at Alabama, 4 p.m. on the SEC Network Plus. Auburn playing at Charlotte. That one at 4:30 on ESPN Plus. So you will need an ESPN Plus or a ESPN direct-to-consumer subscription to watch that one. And then again, the Lady Vols playing tomorrow again against NC State. That one at 3 o'clock. So a little later in the day. That one should be a good one. We'll be on ESPN2. And it is great to have college basketball back. We will be back on Wednesday. We're going to break down some of these college basketball games. We'll preview some future college basketball games. We'll look at midweek because this week, I believe, let me check if I believe I am correct, but this next week should be our first week of action. We get some midweek MAC football. It's going to be crazy stuff. Yeah. We got MAC football, MACtion. Tuesday night MACtion starting tomorrow. So we'll break down. We got 2 games on Tuesday, 2 games on Wednesday. So we'll break those down on our Wednesday. We'll break down the 2 games that are happening on Tuesday on the Wednesday show, and then Friday we'll break down some of the games on the from Wednesday. Man, it is great to be in this point in the season because we have so much stuff going on that I don't even know what I'm talking about. Feel like my head's spinning a million miles an hour. But I'll try to keep everybody up to date on everything going on here in college sports. That's it for college basketball. That is it for college football. We'll be back on a Wednesday to discuss both of them. This has been the Mark My Words College Sports Show here on the X Sports Network. Have a good day, everybody.
Going the distance with local sports. This is the X Sports Network.